Hello, Christopher Gillingham from Leamington, listening in and looking forward to the conversation. Yes, indeed, John Emmett is in windy Weymouth, Stingray up in Seattle. Rob Sternstein, we mentioned Morris Stevens. Andrew Pindar, permission to step aboard, please. He's asking you, Julia, not me. Yeah. Ralph Roberts is watching down in Auckland. Peter Taylor from New York City. Carlos Avis in Brazil. A lot of the regulars on here. Duncan Withrow. Hello from sunny Ottawa, Canada. Oh, Canada. Guy Briere is watching down in Pensacola. He having gotten the hell out of New Orleans. He's been keeping us posted. We'll have more on New Orleans in that situation when we get this show number 449 on the road. 2, 1. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show number 449 for Tuesday, the 31st. A lot going on in the world, a lot going on in the sailing world as well. Julia, I trust you are well.
On and off.
On and off? You listened to the president today. Did he have anything good to say?
That depends on who you are.
Well, okay. That wasn't very. My co-hostess, Julia Vatican, is here as usual. We're live from Studio B in San Francisco's beautiful Marina District. I'm your host, Tom Ehman. Thanks again for joining us. A lot on the show today, including, as you see here in our card, Tim and the PIP, the picture-in-picture, Tim and Whitney Kent. Now, Whitney's not with us because she's having to work at the Sheboygan Sailing Center, but her dad, Tim Kent, is with us. They're doing a father-daughter TJV, Transat Jacques Vabre, sail race coming up. They're going to tell us all about that. There they are. They'll be joining, at least Tim will be joining us in a moment from beautiful New York, the northern shore of Long Island, Oyster Bay, New York. That's Whitney and Tim. They're doing the race together, and we'll get to them in a sec. In the meantime, the starting line segment, as we mentioned, we have to start at the top with the esteemed, one of the oldest, not the oldest, yacht clubs in the country. Southern Yacht Club in New Orleans took almost a direct hit with Hurricane Ida on Sunday. This was the path as the hurricane went just west of Lake Pontchartrain. And of course, Southern is on the southern side of Lake Pontchartrain right here, just east of the causeway. And you can see the track of the hurricane. The red was Cat 4, and then it turned into Cat 3 as it went past St. John and further north. So they took a pretty good hit there. Luckily, well, maybe not lucky. It was, they say west is best, east is the beast. So if you're on the east side of the hurricane, as they were here at a Southern Yacht Club, they took the big part of the storm, the worst part of the storm, because the storm is moving north and the circulation is counterclockwise, so it's additive on the right or east side of the hurricane. That's the look at Southern Yacht Club this morning. Pictures from a Facebook page of a friend there at Southern Yacht Club is the category for Hurricane Ida went through yesterday, and these are photos from today. The club looks intact. The windows, of course, the club rebuilt after Katrina, and apparently the only real problem is water getting in on the main floor and getting into the elevator shafts. And this from Guy Briere, who says that SYC got some water in the shafts using the elevator shafts. Using generators, they were mostly pumped out, but we will need power to get them serviced. Estimates on power restoration, where there are millions of people without power in NOLA, New Orleans, Louisiana. Estimates on power restoration are 2 to 3 weeks.
Be prepared.
And of course, a lot of people have generators. A lot of people are prepared. They've been through this before. The 100th anniversary of the Lipton Cup, which is their big Gulf Yachting Association annual event, had been moved to October to an alternative date, thanks to Guy Briere, who has, he's over in Pensacola. He got out of New Orleans, but he stayed through the storm and then left after it looked like the power was going to be out for such a long period of time. This is a scene inside the clubhouse. This big, beautiful new clubhouse, relatively new, last, 4 or 5 years. And one of the most prestigious, active, cool yacht clubs in the country, one of the oldest. And the Commodore of the Gulf Yachting Association wrote today, the executive committee of the GYA, along with the centennial time, this is their 100th anniversary of the Lipton Cup. They got Lipton Cups around the country, but this is arguably one of, if not the best event. It's a championship of all the yacht clubs in the Gulf Coast in the Gulf Yachting Association. It takes place normally Labor Day weekend. So that Lipton Cup Challenge, in response to the devastation from Hurricane Ida, announces that the 2020, their board meeting and yada yada, will be postponed until, along with the Lipton Cup, until the 29th through the 31st of 2021. The executive committee would like to request each club pass that information on, and we're doing that as well here. It is currently unsafe to travel to the city of New Orleans due to the hurricane damage. We appreciate everyone's understanding and patience due to this difficult time. The executive committee will make additional announcements when available. That, of course, from Jimmy Ruthven, who is the Commodore of the Gulf Yachting Association. It would be remiss of me not to mention the problem here, Julia, up north of us. It's not affecting us other than smoke from time to time here in the Bay Area, but we have horrific fires. The so-called Caldor fire is now threatening communities around Lake Tahoe up north of us. Julia, anything to add to that?
No, it is serious, and they only have it 15% stopped.
Containment,
so,
yeah.
Contained.
And tens of thousands, something like 30,000 buildings and residences and so on are under threat or have already been evacuated. Tens of thousands of people evacuated. It's a Caldor. But we're okay here in the Bay Area. Thanks to many of you who have called and asked and said, are you guys okay? We read and hear about the fires. I want to say thanks here in the starting line section, our A block, to Mr. Andrew McIrvin, who was with us a week ago today. That show's had a lot of views. Of course, we talked not just about COVID, but mostly about COVID. And Andrew, sent me just before we went to air, Julia, one of your most popular, one of your favorite doctors, Dr. John Campbell,
Yes.
with some pretty astonishing news. Have a look at this video.
Well, a warm welcome to today's talk, Tuesday, the 31st of August. Now, over the past few days, there's been quite a major paradigm shift, really, in the way experts are talking about this virus. Now, what it seems is now inevitable that everyone is going to catch this virus, whether you're in the UK, the United States, wherever you are. It seems inevitable everyone is going to catch it because of this more transmissible Delta variant, and the fact that people that are already vaccinated can still transmit the infection. So everyone is going to get it. So what experts are saying is, given that everyone's going to get it, what is the point of carrying on mass testing? Better perhaps to do testing on clinical grounds. Now, this is a major change. But what it means is, I'm going to get this virus, you're going to get this virus, almost certainly, if this current wave of expert opinion is accurate, and it does make a lot of sense to me. Now, given that you're going to be exposed to this virus, would you like to reduce your chances of severe illness, hospitalizations and death? Well, of course. Therefore, if you've had 2 vaccines, the chances of that are going to be greatly, greatly, greatly reduced. And that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. But the idea that everyone is now going to get this, we are not going to reach herd immunity. This has basically been accepted in the past few days, and it's a major change in thinking. We are not going to reach herd immunity. Initially, we thought herd immunity would probably be about 70%, then with a more infectious Alpha variant, maybe 80%, with a more infectious Delta variant, maybe 90%. But now that we're getting so many breakthrough infections, with very few breakthrough severe illnesses, hospitalizations and deaths after vaccine, but breakthrough infections, and those infected people who have been vaccinated are infectious, they can spread it on with the same kind of viral load as people that weren't vaccinated in the first place. All these ideas have come together, and the thinking has well and truly changed. So let's look at...
Okay, I won't go any further than that, but Andrew McIrvin sent that to us just before we went to air. The point being, what's the point of lockdowns now? If you're in New Zealand or Australia, where a lot of you are, And if everybody's going to get this anyway, as you're seeing down there, despite the lockdowns, it's almost as if places that lock down get more of this stuff.
And he thinks this is
So I'm not going to carry on, but several of you are saying maybe, and John Emmett is saying maybe it'd be good to get Andrew back in December as we head into the Northern Hemisphere winter. And again, we don't want this to become the COVID show, but it does affect all of us, and it affects our sport, and we're all trying to be safe and so on. And it's going to affect the Transat Jacques Vabre, perhaps, too, when we get talking to Tim Kent here in a minute. So that's Dr. John Campbell via his YouTube channel. We've been commending that to you for what, Julia, over a year?
Oh, well over, yeah.
Right? What a good channel that is. So do have a look. And that pretty, I don't know how else to characterize that other than as breaking news. It's pretty significant, amazing news from Dr. John Campbell. Thanks, Andrew McIrvin, for sending that along. Speaking of Andrew, did you see in the New York Times on Sunday, our Fozy, and I guess he's been on the show, what Clark tell us, 6 or 7 times now, a bravo Zulu to Andrew for his appearance in the sports section of Sunday's New York Times. A terrific article about Andrew and about, I sent a link to him. He had already seen it, of course, but he said, oh, it's not supposed to be about me. It's supposed to be about the IMA, the International Maxi Association, which, of course, it is. And the headline, Andrew McIrvin is on a mission to save the Maxi Association. He has been running the yachting race organization since 2013 and says he has made its regattas more professional. Well, I think he has made them more professional, but I think he's also made them a hell of a lot more enjoyable and fair and correct for the owners. So bravo Zulu to you, Andrew, and for this nice ink in the New York Times. Andrew, we've had almost 5,000 views of your show from a week ago, 4.9 thousand views. And likewise, the show with Jamie Keating and Al McGarry from a week and a half ago. And thanks to all of you who are giving us, Julia, the thumbs up and the likes and the so on.
Oh, yes, it helps.
And you can watch replays on Facebook right here on this. If you just come to this same page and then go to videos, the videos tab, all of our previous shows are there. Or you can go to our Sailing Illustrated TV YouTube channel. It's called Sailing Illustrated TV. I am now I'm not quite religiously, but regularly after each show within 24 or 36 hours, I put the show up on our YouTube channel as well, so you can watch it there. Speaking of Alan McGarry and Jamie Keating, they came on and told us about the Canada's Cup. The Canada's Cup starts tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Actually, the opening ceremony is tomorrow night. This is a photo from the Royal Canadian Yacht Club's the shore side, the city side, where they send the launches out to the Island Club. A little announcement of their opening ceremony tomorrow night, Wednesday night, September 1st at 6 p.m. I don't think that will be live, but it will be carried on their Facebook page on some basis. And I talked to Alan this morning, and the Canada's Cup, you can follow it on their Facebook page. Just Google Canada's Cup Facebook, and it pops right up. And they are going to do some sort of a, Julia, like we did with the America's Cup, some sort of a Zoom show, 3 or 4 cameras from out on the race course and updating regularly. So it'll be interesting to follow that on their Facebook page, Canada's Cup FB, the Facebook page, and we'll watch that as the Youngstown Yacht Club, Youngstown, New York Yacht Club, is challenging the Royal Canadian Yacht Club for the, what is it, the 40-something Canada's Cup, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Julia, you're witness.
Yes, this will be a very good time to have people follow, and share.
Come on, you were more forceful last time.
It's mandatory.
It's don't fail, you said. Huh?
We'll go mandatory.
Mandatory is the Brits and the Kiwis.
Mandatory.
Mandatory. And what else? Comments are welcome too, even in replay. We appreciate very much your comments and your thumbs up and your hearts and your all those things, because it does help with the algorithm. And if you want to give us a few bucks per month or send us a check to help support this as a viewer-supported media, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We appreciate that very much. And without further ado, let's get to Tim. We're having, for some reason, and it's not his fault, I've got Tim standing by in Oyster Bay, New York. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom.
Now, you can see the video is not correct, and I can see on my computer that's receiving the Skype, and we did a massive tech check yesterday. I think we practiced too much yesterday, Tim. And the reason we were a little late getting on the air is we were trying to fix it. But Tim is with us from Oyster Bay, New York, and you can see his video is not correct. It's not 100%. And if you look here on this computer that's receiving it, it's perfect. Getting it from this computer to the broadcast computer, there's something crutonic. And Tim, I apologize, but your audio is good. And if everyone will bear with us, we'll hear your story because it is fascinating. We appreciate very much your coming on. Tell us, and maybe I'll go back to the slides for a sec. We had this shot at the top of the show, which was actually a zoomed in a photo that I found, or that you sent me, I guess, of this is your father-daughter entry. This is your elder daughter, Whitney, who's what, 28?
She is, yeah.
And what does she do at the Sheboygan, what's it called, Sheboygan Sailing Center?
She is a program director at Sheboygan Youth Sailing.
Sheboygan Youth Sailing. And the late, great Terry Kohler formed that, right?
I believe so, yes.
So that is your elder daughter. You have a younger daughter who's arguably even more famous than Whitney because she's down in New Zealand working for Live, Sail, Die. You're proud papa of Whitney and Allison. How old is Allison?
Allison's 27.
So just a year younger.
Yeah, she's been living down in New Zealand for 5 years now. And she worked for Doyle Sales for 4.5 years and just left to go to work for Live, Sail, Die.
Well, she's doing a nice job. I went on their website and had a look this morning. I don't think that boat has any connection to Sailing Anarchy, but Live, Sail, Die, which is a terrific sailing website, started in Melbourne, now has migrated to Auckland, and they also have they've got some people operating in the UK. Alison Gator Kent, this is your younger daughter, operations manager for LSD, is one of the most enthusiastic keelboat sailors that I've ever met, and her absolute fizz. Julia, remember when we heard about fizzers from Leo Takahashi?
Right.
Her absolute fizz for sailing is what landed her the job. She and fellow keelboat Fizza, Celia Willison were given the keys to the BW40 Anarchy for race 2 of the Lumar Triple Series. So she's also a double-handed sailor, a short-handed sailor. So bravo Zulu to them. The two women have done hundreds of miles together. And that's Sue Ellen Hurling, who is the founder, CEO of Live, Sail, Die, that terrific sailing website down there. So, Tim, let's go to you and tell us about what your previous endeavor was. And we were put in touch by our FOSI, Andrew Pindar, who thinks very highly of you. Tell us about your previous endeavor, short-handed sailing.
Well, this is a photo of Everest Horizontal. This is a Mocha 50 that I did the Around Alone race on in 2002 and 2003. Interestingly enough, that 981 on the bow refers to Whitney and Allison, who were 9 and 8 when I started the race, and 1 year older when I got back.
Nice. How about this shot?
This is a shot of me right after the Cape Town doctor came calling as I crossed the finish line. I crossed the finish line in no wind at all. And then right at 6 p.m., we got 40 knots of wind across the deck. And that's a very busy guy in that cockpit of that boat right there.
And where was this?
In Cape Town, South Africa, right after the finish of the second leg of the Around Alone race.
Ultimately, though, you had this happen, and maybe Horizontal wasn't such a what you could name the boat?
Well, first of all, the Around Alone race was a real success. I mean, we were underfunded and underprepared, but I still finished in second place in that race.
Wow.
And after the race, a friend of mine and I decided to do the Bermuda 1-2. And I did the leg down Bermuda solo. And when my friend Rick McKenna and I were heading north on the return leg, about 110 miles north of Bermuda, as you can see, the keel bulb is missing off that keel. And the boat capsized. Now, I will tell you that if you're going to be rescued at sea, I strongly recommend getting picked up by a cruise ship. We were picked up by a Royal Caribbean Lines cruise ship and we were treated very, very well. Thank you very much. And I went back and found the boat. It took 3 trips, but we found the boat and took it back to Bermuda, and then Hurricane Fabian came along, and you can see what Hurricane Fabian did to my poor I'm 50. So that was the end of that project.
Where's the boat now? What's happening with the boat?
The boat is still in Bermuda. I abandoned it in place. Was allowed to do that, and some young man down there hopped aboard and refitted it somewhat, hung a couple of outboards on the back, and he lives aboard now.
Okay.
So that's not the world's greatest liveaboard boat, I can tell you.
Okay, well, tell us about Kent Racing and what this father-daughter campaign, like no other, is all about.
Well, Kent Racing was designed in part to help Whitney and Allison and I do some double-handed long-distance racing together. Allison right now, of course, is locked down in New Zealand and can't travel. So Whitney and I decided to do the Transat Jacques Vabre this fall. And we are, the boat was down. I purchased this boat in the Bahamas last fall. And my friend Kat Chimney and I prepared the boat for the Bermuda 1-2 and brought it up and did that race successfully without shedding any keels or having any problems. And now we're preparing the boat to go to France for the start of the Jacques Vabre.
So the TJV, for those that don't know, and we did cover the last one, it's one of the, the French are famous for these short-handed races of the classes 40, and there are, the Vendée Globe and the Route de Rhum, but for the class 40s, which you are going to be racing, it's a 4,600 nautical mile race down to the Cape Verde Islands off Africa, and then you turn the islands to starboard and go over to Martinique for the finish. The race starts November 7th. It'll take us approximately 3 weeks to make this trip from the cold weather and frequent gales of the Bay of Biscay to the inviting, balmy conditions of the Caribbean. I got a nice smile out of your face. And you wrote that. That's in your fundraising blurb, because you are looking for how much between now and when this race starts on November 7th?
Well, we've spent about almost $200,000 on this boat to this point, and our friends have gotten us this far. The budget from now through the end of the year for the required equipment for the race and for logistics and getting down to the Caribbean is $80,000. And we're looking for a sponsor that shares our passion for sailing and passion for adventure and our belief in the family values that we have to step up and give us a hand so that we can complete this race.
So this is happening very soon. When do you leave? When do you have the boats in Oyster Bay, if I remember well? When do you have to depart Oyster Bay to sail across to France?
I hope to leave in no less than 3.5 weeks.
Wow. Close.
So you got 80 grand left to raise.
Yeah, everyone's teed up to get the work done. I just have to pay for it.
Okay, well, let's have a quick look at the TJV promotional video that I found on the internet yesterday. This is quite a different deal because in the past there haven't really been 3 different race courses, right? For each of the classes. So, and the L teams are going all the way down off Brazil, and they still may finish first, right?
They might very well. There are 50 Class 40s in this race.
Mm.
We will be the only all-American Class 40. There's one other boat that has an American owner, and he's sailing with a British co-skipper. But we're the only American entry, all-American entry. We're the only father-daughter entry. And judging by the pictures online, I am unquestionably the oldest guy in this race. I think we have a great story to tell, and we'll tell it daily from the boat.
And you're what, late 60s?
I'm 69.
Well, that's a couple years older than me and a couple years younger than Julia. Julia, you could be doing this race. Maybe you and I should have done this and challenged Whitney and Tim.
Oh yes, and put hair in our chest.
You put more than that. Well, it's you're going to go down in the 40s. You're going to turn, as we said, the Cape Verde Islands to starboard and then go across to Martinique. How long is the race?
It will take us 3 weeks, roughly. It starts out, I mean, you have to have your head examined for racing through the English Channel and across the Bay of Biscay at the beginning of November, but
Yes.
That's where we start. But the carrot is being able to race to the Caribbean.
Well, go ahead.
The race village is amazing. I have been to the start of the Transat Jacques Vabre. There are over 500,000 people come through that village, and it's an amazing event.
Well, we're looking forward to it. We're going to cover it and cover, of course, you and Whitney. George Young in Detroit is saying, from Detroit, Michigan, Tim and Whitney Kent embody the qualities of skill, family, moxie, and dedication to our sport that should make all American sailors proud. Well, all sailors everywhere, not just American sailors, I suppose. I encourage those who support racing to support Kent Racing, most deserving. And, of course, you're from Detroit originally. You're from Lake St. Clair and from the city of St. Clair, north of Detroit, if I remember well. And you've been at, speaking of a Michigander, you've been helping out at Oyster. You've been, the shore manager at in Oyster Bay for Don Riley for the last, 4 or 5 years?
Well, I worked at Oak Cliff Sailing for 4 years. I left about a year and a half ago, actually, to work with Andrew Pindar in Dubai on his Volvo 60s. And then came over here and bought this Class 40 because I wanted to get back in the game. And here we are. We're going to do our very best to represent our new sponsor, whoever that is, very well in the Transat Jacques Vabre.
Well, let's get going and get behind this. It's a great story. I certainly agree, and delighted to have you on, and we're wishing you best of luck. We should talk a little bit more about the race. The concept of the TJV is that the course retraces the coffee route from the Caribbean and Brazil to France. Jacques Vabre, of course, is a coffee company, has supported this biannual event since its inception 24 years ago. So this must be, the 12th or 13th such event. Is that right?
It is, yes. A pretty long-running sponsorship.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the longest running now in the sport since LV left the America's Cup. And, you've got some other long-running sponsorships like Hugo Boss in Formula One and a couple others. But tell us specifically some more about Kent Racing and your yacht.
I bought this boat last fall. It is number 34. It's an Owen Clark design. Because the Class 40 is a box rule, the newer boats in 171 just got launched, and they're all in sequential order. We have a subset of Class 40 called the Vintage Class. That's a great shot of the boat, starting the Bermuda one too. And so we'll be racing in the Vintage Class, so we have an opportunity to race within the race. And we're going to try to do very, very well in the Vintage Class. It's got all new sails, all new safety equipment, and we think we stand a very good chance of putting ourselves quite well in this race.
Well, we certainly hope so. And Yarvahe, who's watching, said cheekily, he said, "Don't bump into Martinique."
Well, as we all know, Hugo Boss bumped into Martinique on the way down 2 years ago. We'll try very hard to stay awake when we were passing that island.
So you're going to leave from New York in just a few weeks. You've been doing obviously some sailing down there. This is clearly a shot at night of Manhattan. Tell us about this.
That picture was taken at Liberty Landing Marina. A friend of mine has a boat there, and we were stopping over for the night when we were coming back up from South Carolina when we were preparing the boat. And it's beautiful to be able to look across the river and see New York City lit up like that.
Mm. Alex Kent, who's a regular, says, Mr. Kent, I assume he's referring to you, looks like my grandfather. The county of Kent, the county of Kent in England was a major trading port, but was developed heavily by the Danish over the centuries, I once read. David Robinson, who's the esteemed general manager across the bay at San Francisco Yacht Club, says, and he's also a Detroit boy, by the way, originally. Tell Tim good luck. We go way back when I was GM at Milwaukee Yacht Club long ago. Do you remember David Robinson?
I do. I lived in Milwaukee for 20 years.
Wow.
Both my kids grew up sailing there, and I was a member of Milwaukee Yacht Club.
Yeah, I sailed any number of times there to a great club. Unless you have a northeaster on the lake, then it's a little bumpy.
The northeasters are pretty tough.
A little bumpy and bouncy, sailing Flying Scots and Lightnings and whatever else. They're a great club, though. Catherine Elizabeth is saying, don't forget how much publicity and coverage there is in France for this event. So a sponsor looking for cover for sponsorship, not only here in the States, but particularly in Europe, particularly in France. I wonder if there's a French sponsor in particular who might be interested, not just an American sponsor or people here in the U.S., because I know there's a lot of French sponsors who sponsor, well, if you take Hugo Boss, a German company that sponsors Alex Thompson, for example.
Well, the fact is that this is NASCAR for French people. When you look at the boats, they're logoed up just like a NASCAR car is. And the skippers are as famous. People have a big fan base for the figurists, for the people doing the double-handed races, and of course the solo sailors. And as witness the fact that 520,000 people come through that race village.
Yeah.
And every one of the boats on the starting line of the Class 40 class and the TJV is going to be logoed up for a sponsor. And I'm looking forward to rechristening Kent Racing and renaming it after a sponsor that we can logo the sails and the boat up.
You'll rename the boat from Kent Racing to, if Julia wanted to sponsor it, it could be Beach Street Yacht Club Racing, Julia.
Oh, yes.
Huh?
That would get it.
Absolutely.
No, seriously, it's a great, I think it's not a lot of money in sponsorship standards, especially for a race with this much exposure. A question from David James, who's over in Sausalito. He's saying, with the autopilot so good these days, is there any reason to hand steer at any point?
It's a great question, and he's right. The autopilots these days are extremely good. Off the wind, when you can get the boat planing, there's a lot of reason to drive it, hand steer the boat. You can get some really amazing speeds, and when you catch a wave and start to surf down it, the pilots are decent at that, but the human touch is irreplaceable at that time.
Okay, any other questions for Tim before we let him go? Ralph Roberts, a lot of people on here. Alex Kent is in Wilmette, Illinois, by the way. He said he sailed from Milwaukee to Chicago and back up with some friends, hit a lightning storm, gusts of 45 knots, good times, yeah. Yeah, somebody said the sound has problems. I hope our regular sound doesn't have problems. I hope it's just the AV sync with us to Tim, and that's really not Tim's problem. Or we generally, in fact, what I should have probably done, Tim, is when we couldn't get a good sync here with Skype, I should have probably tried Zoom. But nonetheless, it's good to have you on. Monica Diaz here's Malta is tops off. I'm not quite sure what that means, Monica, who's in Spain. Ken Grimson, welcome to you. Matthias Collins, check down there, Matthias, in South America. A couple other shots maybe we should look at here. This is a shot of you, obviously, but
yes, this is on back on the Open 50, and when we were on the third leg to Auckland, my foul weather gear and everything else on the boat was ruined by an engine problem, and that's Andrew Pindar's foul weather gear. I wore Pindar gear around Cape Horn and all the way back to Newport. Andrew and his team was extremely helpful to us. We were right on the edge financially, and every now and then some of their guys would come over and just pitch in and give us a hand. He and I developed a friendship then that has been strong ever since.
Well, I've only gotten really to know Andrew in the last 3-4 years because of this. He's been on the show. He's a Fozy. He's been on the show any number of times. Julia's got her Pindar mug there, don't you, Julia?
I
With
do.
your iced coffee in it. So we've got some Pindar branding, just like your foul weather gear here in the studio. And Andrew, of course, is watching, and he's saying, how about sponsored by Friends of Sailing Illustrated? If we could get a bunch of our Fozy together to contribute some bucks and sponsor you. I'm sure you'd be open to that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I think Sailing Illustrated would be a great name on the side of the boat. You can go to kentracing.org and you can make contributions right there. Or if you want to talk to me about sponsorship or anything else, I'm at tim@kentracing.org.
Now, Allison Kent is on, and she's locked down here in New Zealand, very jealous of your opportunity. I think she means probably not just being on the show, but doing this double-handed race with your other daughter. Cool stuff. Catherine Elizabeth is saying the press conferences during Paris Fashion Week, any chance of seeing Tim on the catwalk?
It's quite likely that I will be sailing the boat to France at that point.
Well, how long a sail do you think it is to France?
It's a couple weeks.
And you're planning to leave when?
We want to leave the last week of September.
Okay. Well, I've got one more photo here, and then I've got your info also on a lower third, but there's the yacht. As I understand it, sits now in Oyster Bay in New York, and that's from where you will be heading off in how many weeks?
It's about 3.5 weeks.
So you need to raise 80. You've already raised 200. Spent a lot of your own money into this. You need to raise another 80 grand to make this all come together. And you want to raise that before you take off, right?
Well, we kind of need to because I've got a lot of equipment we need to buy before we can leave. There's just some things that are required for the event. So there's a much higher level of equipment specification that they want for the TJB than they did for the Bermuda 1-2.
And somebody, who's that? Allison is saying, I guess that's your daughter, is I bet Tim would touch up on his French if he got a French sponsor. How's your French?
Oui, absolutely. I would be happy to touch up on my French. I had a bunch of it in high school, and I still have a little bit left.
Christopher rather, Palabrica is saying it would be great to hear insights on why it is so difficult to locate sponsors in the U.S.
Be nice to hear.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Well, we could talk about that for hours. It's mostly because this is not the way that it's typically done in the United States. Boats are not typically sponsored by corporations here. It's very common in Europe, extremely common. So trying to get a U.S. sponsor to get the idea that sailboat racing is a widely sponsored event, it's really tough to do.
For sure. Your daughter is asking, who's doing the delivery? Allison's asking, who's doing the delivery with you?
I have one person, and if a couple people want to sign up, we'd be happy to have a couple more people on board.
Okay. There's a note from Alex Kent, your namesake, Mr. Kent. You might know Pat McGinnis and his late father, Dr. McGinnis, from the Delafield, Wisconsin, Milwaukee area. We sailed their boat on that run.
I recognize the name. I don't know the people.
Anything else, sir?
No, well, thank you very much for having us on board. And please, if anybody has any questions or wants to contribute to Kent Racing, please go to kentracing.org or email me.
Well, we're going to follow you. This is the beginning, not the end. And we love still, if I know Allison's watching down in New Zealand, if Allison would like to send us a video from Live Sail Die, we'd love to Allison, a TikTok style video can be, make it landscape instead of portrait, but whatever. Just send us a video from down there wishing your dad and your sister best wishes for this event. And anybody wants to contribute, again, you can go to kentracing.org or email Tim directly at tim@kentracing.org. I got that right, Tim? Is that right?
You did.
Good.
And I think it'd be really nice to see Sailing Illustrated right in place of Kent Racing. So if everyone would gather together and get us up to speed, we'll change the name of the boat to Sailing Illustrated.
Well, look at I don't think this is a joke. I think this is serious. Pat Brady, there's a thumbs up, and I hope we'll give Pat Brady some thumbs up and hearts. 10K coming your way, Pat Brady
Wow.
says.
Great.
There you go.
Guillermo, there's a lot of thumbs up and hearts for that. Guillermo Fares is watching. Monica Diaz, oui. Hamish Ross down in Auckland is saying Lafayette would be a great USA French name and sponsor link. That's an idea. Lafayette, especially what's going on down in Nolans. Bill Wingrove in Tampa, Florida, saying, being the Classic 40, have you or are you allowed mods to the boat without losing your allowance?
No, there are. The cool thing about Class 40 is they have a lot of cost containment rules. The boats are built out of fiberglass. They have rod rigging. The only carbon on the boat is the mast, boom, and bowsprit. So no, there's very few mods that we can make. We got a few speed things up our sleeve, but for the most part, you run what you brung.
You run what you brung. Okay. Sir, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Indeed.
Great to have you on. We're going to follow the race as we did last time. We're going to follow you closely, aren't we, Julia?
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Tom, Julia, thank you very much for having us on.
Likewise. Thank you very much. Best wishes and Godspeed.
Thank you, Tom.
Tim Kent, KentRacing.org, KentRacing.org, Tim@KentRacing.org. You can follow up with them, send them some money. I think we've raised 10 grand. I hope so. Lots of hearts, lots of thumbs up. Gordon Smith saying bon voyage. Allison Kent, go Kent Racing. Good luck, Tim. Monica Diaz is saying Bill Canfield is watching from down on the Virgin Islands. David Robinson, we mentioned, and many, many others. Thank you all for your interest in that. I think it's a great human interest story, don't you, Julia?
Indeed. Yeah, and there's it'll be fun to follow it.
And I'll bet you Andrew Pindar is going to give him some help too. Knowing Andrew, he very quietly will behind the scenes.
Yes, I hope so.
And again, it was Andrew who put us on to Tim and Tim on to us, and we're delighted to have him on as a guest. Sorry for the AV sync, and I'm really not sure what it is, but we've never ever had that problem before. No. But that's what we always say. Okay, let's carry on because we've got another one of our favorites. Not only his report from last Friday, which I was just going to post on my Facebook page, but I thought it was so cool that we ought to run it today. And we're going to then run his. He is a working stiff, John Emmett.
Yes.
Bless his heart, so prolific. He also sent a report in this morning, so we have two today from John Emmett. Have a look and listen.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. There's no show this week, but the world of sailing continues to go on and on, so I thought I should do a little report as normal. As you can see, I'm actually at the farmhouse. This is Imberhorn Farm, where I grew up, but even here, a long way from the coast, you're never far from a sailing club. In fact, I was very lucky to have two clubs within 3 miles. One, Crawley Mariners Yacht Club, where you could actually stand up, and it's such a small piece of water, it often doesn't appear any maps. And Weirwood Reservoir, where I did the later part of my sailing before going to university. It just goes to show how good these places are. Castle Cove is where I sail now, based down in Weymouth, but it's the first two clubs that really inspired me in the sport. Crawley Mariners Yacht Club has double Olympic medalist Simon Hiscox, and also Paralympic gold medalist Helena Lucas were the people who encouraged me to sail, and indeed to a certain extent taught me. And Weirwood, there's an awful lot of names, probably most notable the Greenhow brothers, who did 420s, 470s, 49ers, international 18s. The skiffs they had some amazing video if you go and search it, and of course the Volvo Ocean Race. And I was just lucky to come through such a big and good group of youth sailors. Indeed, the Oppie week, they used to have the entire bay at Weirwood full, maybe 60 boats, and that's what really encouraged us all to go on. And I thought the reason I should do a report is because the nationals in the UK just continue to go. So I just got it wrong last time. The solo class had 98 people. 98, so just under the 100 club. And there's also a lot of double-handed events going on. I know this was harder to sail during COVID times. The classes are bouncing back. The RS200 is an amazing boat. It's an asymmetric hiking boat, which really fits between sort of club sailing and high performance, right in the middle. I think they had 119 boats in the end, and that was run by Nick Peters, who I would put it out there now. Nick Peters is going to be one to watch in the 49er class for the future. He was actually crewed by Maddie, Maddie Addison is a kite surfer who I actually interviewed on Restart Sailing Show 33. So really small world. Hope the reports are still good quality and you're enjoying them. I think I just discovered why you have to pay all that extra money for a flagship phone, and I'm really looking forward to getting my phone back from the repair at some point. Seem to be missing it a lot, but hopefully the sound quality is good enough, and wishing you all to stay safe and carry on sailing, and hope to see you all next week.
Well, that was John's Friday report, and as I said, as you all know, we didn't have a show on Friday, but he sent us another report this morning, and here's that.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fosey. Really nice to be chatting to you again. I think you're going to get two episodes in one show, if that's not too much for you all. So you could probably guess I'm back in Weymouth. Not quite so sunny. It seems the evenings are drawing in. In fact, we've only got a couple of weeks of evening racing left, but I've just had a fantastic weekend of club sailing. And I think that's what I wanted to talk to you all about. But going back to the last little chat we did, I think we need to talk about the classes first. So I saw originally they had 98 solo dinghies racing, and the chairman of that class, very well known in the UK, called Doug Latter. This is an example of somebody who really makes those events happen and has done for many years. And this is somebody who's almost doing like a full-time role as a volunteer. I think it would probably be every single day we'll be doing something for the class. So I was very sad to see Doug step down, but I think this is the way it goes. And I had a similar situation myself within the ILCA class. I was a training officer for many years, and they have a policy that you can only stay in a role for so long now. So I've been taken over, as it were, by a great chap called Tim Hulse, who's actually probably going to do far better things than I ever did. So yeah, I have to say, when we're looking at all these numbers at national championships, it is really down to those people who are the backbone of the class. And for every Doug in the solo, there's many Dougs all around the world, and it's the same at the club level. So we have Rip Bowers at Castle Cove. It's a sailing secretary role that seems almost full-time, and they do this all voluntary. And I think club sailing is such a very important part of that. And I think the UK is probably very good at tapping into this volunteer basis. And that's probably why we have to have the rules, meaning people can't stand continually forever. Otherwise, some people would never leave, probably, including myself in that bracket. But yeah, a great weekend of club racing, and it really got me thinking, because that is actually the majority of our sport, especially in the UK. And club races are a lot of fun. I always feel I can't really go and have a cider on a Monday evening or whatever unless I've done the club race. So I think the only Monday I missed was when we actually had the ILCA Nationals at the same time. So to do two races out in Weymouth Bay and then come back and do the club race in Portland Harbour would have been a bit much for me. And I did do that the final day of the Nationals. But club racing, it's the backbone of the sport. And I don't think in any way you can look down on club racing. Actually, it's a very important part of skill development. And I always encourage people to do that absolute best in club racing, because if you don't practice getting a good start and doing good mark rounds into club racing, how can you do it when you get to a championship? And actually, for the majority of us, and I include myself in that, the club racing is our training for the national or even international regattas. So I think there's a really important atmosphere, and I was trying to put my finger on it, but it's work hard and play hard. In other words, super competitive on the water, and then have a beer and chat about it afterwards when you get off. I think that's the quintessential part of club racing. And I think in the next chat, going to try and look at cadets. That's what a lot of clubs will call the youth or junior sailors, because they are the future of the sport, and it's attracting them and probably more important, retaining them, which is the most important thing. But today is a big shout out for all the Dougs out there, because I think it's just amazing how much work they do, and it's often not noticed until they stop doing it. So thanks for a great season for all those really hard-working people behind them.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
Did he use the word dogs? All those dogs out there, but he means the volunteers. I didn't quite hear what he meant, but we've been saying this for a long time, that the heart and the soul of the sport is club racing.
Absolutely.
And Paul Henderson has said that. Richard Gladwell, any of you all around. In fact, look at all the comments here.
Yes.
Bill Canfield certainly agrees with us as the president of the Virgin Islands Sailing Association that he is. Jonathan Frank, nice problem to have when we can't get enough coaches for the Opti kids. Baton Rouge is, I always forget where he is, I think in Charleston. The last Wednesday evening race, and Charleston Harbor is tomorrow. Summer is winding down indeed. Gordon Smith is saying no club racing, no champions. How true. And of course, that has been my argument, Julia, as we've been talking about what John just said forever, that the problem with the U.S. Olympic program, we used to have the Olympic classes at the club level, and you'd go race 470s at the club level or the regional level. You'd go race the other Olympic classes. Not anymore. We've caused it because of the centralization of the U.S. sailing team. It has all centralized into a few people that are funded centrally by U.S. sailing, and then they're sent to this regatta or not sent to that regatta. And excuse me, it's Crutonic.
Yeah.
We got to get back to broad club level sailing, and that's great for the sport. It's great for the retention in the sport. It's great for the enjoyment of the sport. Clubs are where it's at. Pedro Foiling Sailor, happy birthday to Lily, John. Is she out of lockdown quarantine yet?
And it's been answered.
It hasn't. What'd he say?
Lily got out just in time for her birthday.
Nice. Well, wish her a happy birthday for us as well, John. There were some other problems. There were some other comments up here. Let's see. Rajiv Prasad is watching. There's a new name. Hello, Rajiv. Gordon Smith, I love these vlogs from John. Always feel like we are having an informed chat in the pub.
Yes.
John's talking about drinking cider. Do you think for a minute he drinks cider, or is it hard cider?
Well, I probably both.
When was the last? That's a really nice scarf. I'm just noticing here on that camera 3 how nice that looks.
Anchor chains.
You won't get the hashtag where's the scarf from Stingray this week. No. Nice stuff, John Emmett. Thank you very much indeed. Again, we invite, you don't have to go on and do 3 or 4 minute reports. You don't have to do anything timely, but we'd love to hear from Ralph Roberts, for example. Ralph, you're on here. You're down in Auckland. You're one of the senior serious people in not just New Zealand sailing, but in our entire sport. And if you would stick your face in front of your phone, record a 30-second or a minute-long little vlog, as they call it, a vlog, a video vlog, and send it to us. It's easy to send. John uses a thing called WeTransfer, John? What do we use here? On WhatsApp, or you can send it lots of different ways, WhatsApp, Dropbox. But John sends using, let me quick look here. What do we call that, John? John Emmett. Yeah, what is this? Yeah, WeTransfer.com. And it's basically, there's a free version and there's others. But, they're small files. You don't have to edit them. You don't just knock them off and send them. I'd love to hear from Allison Kent. Mm-hmm. The younger daughter from Live Sail Die.
During the race.
I saw that Sue Ellen was on, Sue Ellen Hurley, who's the CEO and founder of that. And that's a terrific publication, and they've done a fair bit of video. They did video during the Cup, which we grabbed and used here on Sailing Illustrated and on some of those watch parties we did on Zoom.
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun. So any of you who wants to contribute, we're not guaranteeing it for everybody because we've got, we have a lot of other content, but we'd love to hear from those of you. Chris Schondorf is on. we'd love to hear from people. You know, Baton Rouge in Charleston, one of the great sailing centers of this country now. People don't realize it. When you talk about sailing centers, people normally think about Newport and maybe Annapolis and San Diego, possibly the Bay Area. But there are lots of other great sailing areas, including and especially Tampa Bay and Charleston and, well, New Orleans when they're not being run over by Hurricane Ida. Speaking of hurricanes, I digress, the ENTP that I am. I digress. Just before we went to air, I had a text from our weather guru, Mark Michelson, who not only called the Hurricane Henri that went up through Newport, he called it spot on, ahead of NOAA, and then NOAA started to waver and say it's going to go someplace else. And I talked to Michelson. He said, no, it's going to go right here, right up through western Rhode Island, and it's going to go ashore at a Cat 1. It's not a big deal. It's going to be some rain and wind. Well, it was. It was, rain and wind. He also called this latest one in NOLA, in New Orleans. We call it NOLA, New Orleans, Louisiana. He called that one spot on, too. He said, no, it's going ashore at more than a Cat 1 or 2. This thing quickly developed off of the southwestern corner of Cuba, and he said right where it was going to go ashore a couple days in advance, didn't waver, and he was right. Now, just before we went to air, Mark Michelson said, especially for those of you down in the Gulf, he said September, I think it was 16th. Let me check. He texted me and he said, now don't bet the farm on this. Don't, what else did he say? He said, he said, take it with not just a grain of salt, but with a bucket full of salt. See if I can find my text on here, what he said. But it was something like the 16th of September, he's predicting, and apparently all the different models are starting, they're still a little scatterbrained, but they're starting to predict a serious hurricane going through New Orleans again in just 2 weeks or a little more than 2 weeks' time. He said, don't bet the farm on it. Again, take it with a big grain of salt, but people should have no pun intended, a weather eye. Where was that? Maybe he sent it to me on Facebook Messenger. Doesn't matter. But when Michelson talks, you got to believe that the guy knows what he's talking about. So those of you down on the Gulf Coast,
he's astoundingly accurate.
He is. And he's one that he'll put his you-know-what on the table ahead of time. And he doesn't hedge or fudge around. He says, this is what I think is going to happen. And yeah, but I think that's what's going to happen. And then it does. It's been time. We've been following Mark. Mark's been commenting here since, 4 years now. And if you need a good weather router, he's also, he has a day job, but he also does a lot of weather routing for particularly West Coast yachts and the races to Hawaii and so on. I'm not giving, I just did give him a plug. Nice plug. Great guy, Mark Michelson. This day in history, do you know what happened, sadly, on this day in history, 31st of August, 1997. And you know what happened, Julia, that day? 97, 24 years ago. Next year will be the 25th anniversary of this tragic event. It's one of those events that, like when they landed on the moon and when JFK was assassinated and one or two other things like that, maybe the botched retreat from Kabul will be one of those days that we'll all remember where we were. I certainly remember where I was. But in 97, on this day in history, here's your one and only clue.
Oh, Diana, really?
Yeah. Diana Frances Spencer, Lady Di, Princess of Wales, died in that tragic car accident in Paris, in Paris. It was sad. Of course, during her life, she was a supporter of many charitable causes, notably landmine clearance, AIDS, and Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital in the UK. On 31st of August, 97, she died in that car crash in Paris. Global attention and mourning was extensive, and 2 billion people tuned into her funeral.
Incredible.
On this day, her funeral wasn't on this day, but her death was on this day, on the 31st of August, and very quickly scenes like this popped up all over London in front of various castles.
There's a lesson in there someplace.
What is the lesson? I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
But I mean, she truly loved and expressed that, everybody. And she said so all the time.
That's right. Hamish Ross is saying on this day in 81, the Secret Cove America's Cup Challenge was accepted by New York Yacht Club before its annual regatta. Secret Cove was the Canadian challenge out west. But there's another thing that happened on this day in history, a little happier, I think, event to commemorate in 2013. Do you know what happened on this day? Actually, it's the 1st of September, but, we've got all of our friends down under, where it is Wednesday the 1st. What happened in 2013? Here's your one clue. Remember that, Julia?
Yeah.
That's obviously Alcatraz Island here in San Francisco Bay. Those are the AC, 45s were they? That were used in the run-up to AC, to the 2013 Cup here, AC 34. This, you see what it says on the mainsail? SWE Youth Challenge, Swedish Youth Challenge. So this was the first ever Youth America's Cup, finished today in 2013. And people forget that the winners of the 2013 Youth America's Cup, in fact, both the winners and the runners-up were Kiwi teams. And the Kiwis won on this day in history, in 2013, the first ever Youth America's Cup. And that team was Peter Burling, Blair Tuke, Jono Spurtle, Sam Meach, Andy Maloney, Jason Saunders, and Guy Endine. In addition to using the AC-45 Cats for the initial World Series races, the events leading up to the 34th Cup here in San Francisco, they were used in the nationality-based Youth America's Cup, the smaller scaled-down AC-45 version of the AC-72 with similar characteristics. Well, I'm not quite sure that's true. To the AC-72 enables younger competition sailors to master the techniques used to sail this, blah, blah, blah. And the Youth America's Cup began. It was a Russell Coutts. A lot of us had this idea and were pushing it, and then Russell made it happen. And both first and second places were taken by New Zealand entries. And then, of course, 4 years later, basically the team that won the Youth America's Cup won the America's Cup in Bermuda. Tuke and Burling and Andy Maloney and so on. So bravo Zulu to them. And by the way, the third place team, remember who that was? Portugal.
Oh,
see that? Right there, Portugal was third. So
yeah.
It was a terrific event. It was close racing. There were some collisions and some croutonicism, but a terrific event nonetheless.
Great idea, though.
Great idea, and that was in 2013, so 8 years ago today. What else? Any other comments here, Julie, from anybody? Burling won that event. Yep, Stingray sang. Burhan Mohammed, hello, Burhan. The Moth World start this week in Lake Garda. Sad not to be there. Jody Shields is saying, yeah, well, Jody's locked down like everybody else. I forget, was Diana a South African? Yeah, Stingray, okay. Trying to be serious here. Let's get into the American Cup boat race. The America's Cup, there's some news, as you all have been following. Those of you who watch the news coming out of New Zealand, the New Zealand Herald, the venue beat goes on and unrest builds down in Auckland. It's the 170th year of the Cup, the oldest trophy in international sports, as you know, and as we said on the show a week ago. Is the venue going to be Cork, Ireland? Is it Valencia, Spain? Is it going to fly off to either Abu Dhabi or Saudi Arabia? A lot of people think it is going to somehow be in Jeddah. I just cannot believe it's going to be in Jeddah, but I can't believe it. And Abu Dhabi, I could sort of get my arms around. Julie, are you looking for the button? It's right on the top of that.
I did just.
Oh, you get it? Good.
Yeah.
I should sort of get my arms around Abu Dhabi. It's a more Western-ized, facing-looking country, and they've got Formula One, and they've got somewhat better women's rights and so on, somewhat better. But it should go back to Auckland. If they're not going to race it in the Solent, which is what I thought had been the plan when the Royal Yacht Squadron Limited became the challenger record, it should go back to Auckland, full stop. And if they go someplace else, it will be as big a mistake as Golden Gate Yacht Club made when I was Vice Commodore, when we let the Cup go to Bermuda. That was just a disaster for the Cup. Unforgivable, right, Julia?
Yes.
Well, look at this headline in an article by Caroline Meng Yi in New Zealand Herald that came out overnight. America's Cup could stay if Dalton leaves Team New Zealand, claims as they call him in New Zealand, a rich lister. Team New Zealand questions his intentions, that is, the intentions of the rich lister. An influential rich lister claims he has donors lined up to fund a New Zealand-hosted defense of the America's Cup, but only if Grant Dalton steps down. Mark Dunphy, CEO and chairman of the Greymouth Petroleum Company, is behind a last-ditch bid to stop the 2024 regatta. See everybody calling it now 2024? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we're telling you too. Heading overseas, it would be the first time that New Zealand surrenders the defense of the Old Mug in its own waters. Team New Zealand says it has no choice but to look overseas due to lack of funding. Cork in Ireland, Valencia, Spain, and Jeddah in Saudi Arabia are all bidding to host the event. A decision on whether the regatta will be held overseas will be announced on September 17th. Okay, this is the gentleman. This is Mark Dunphy of New Zealand, the so-called rich lister, who's the CEO.
Do we know about him?
I don't. I've never met him. Have you? Have you met him or heard about him?
I haven't.
He's the gentleman who is supposedly funding and behind not just himself, but a number of affluent Kiwis who want to keep the cup in New Zealand. The article went on to say that the billionaire says nothing would make him happier than ETNZ raising its own funds. Quote, but if Grant Dalton and Team New Zealand don't want to do that or can't do that, then I am happy to do that. In this context, it seems most donors are happy to put in funds, providing Grant Dalton is not involved, unquote, Dunphy said. Quote, that wasn't my starting position, but it is now, he said in this new article. It just, as I said, came out overnight. If Grant doesn't want to or can't raise the money, I will do it. The same position applies to Grant's ongoing involvement with the team. If he doesn't want to manage the cup here, I believe there are others who will do it and can do so just as well or better. So that was this. And by the way, the article goes on. It reveals, and there was no pushback, that there is a so-called legacy payment being made by Team New Zealand to the Yacht Club of $3 million. That just what some people are saying. It's the team just saying to the Yacht Club, "Hey, keep your mouth shut. Let us do this thing, and we'll pay you $3 million." Some would call that a bribe. Some would call it a legacy payment. Some people would just say it's what the club deserves for being the. So I'm not going to characterize it. But this is this gentleman, this billionaire, Mark Dunphy. Now I'm going to tell you some one hearses. Is that the right? Is that the plural? One hearses? I'm going to hear you some multiple one hears about what's going on down there. The first having to do with the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. Multiple New Zealand sources tell me that the trustee, the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, is not covering itself in glory. That they have accepted a fake yacht club as the deed challenger of record. It's a 2 shilling, he's saying the Royal Yacht Squadron Racing is a 2 shilling company. They, and these are lawyers and senior serious affluent people are coming together down there. That the issue is likely to head to New Zealand courts. Not just the courts in New York, but the New Zealand courts.
Yeah.
Julia.
Oh, I hate to see that happen.
Because of, trustee issues and also because of some money that's moving around. No excuse for a 2 shilling company after CNEV and the New York court ruling. CNEV being, as we told you, the Club Nautico Español de Vela, which was the fake yacht club that Alinghi SNG had as their challenger record after they won in 2007. Royal New Zealand has been a competitor since 1993 and a party to past court actions over fake yacht clubs. Royal New Zealand is relying on Team New Zealand's legal advisor, my old friend, Russell Green, for legal advice, so one hears. Royal New Zealand delegated everything to Team New Zealand, and I have a copy of that agreement, by the way.
Yeah.
Home defense is a no-brainer. That is defending in New Zealand, supported by New Zealand authorities, competitors, local money, and RNZ members. They're all too scared to take on Dalton. They all need to man up. Big trouble coming. Royal New Zealand needs to fight to right the ship before it sinks. Julia?
I think it's a bit harsh, but they Royal New Zealand should take charge of whatever's going on.
Royal New Zealand should take charge. But we know that Golden Gate Yacht Club let Larry and Russell take it to Bermuda.
Yep.
And there was only one person objecting.
I know.
I can say from inside those board meetings.
Who left?
And who then left, and a lot of good that objection did.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's some one here's, if that's the word, about Team New Zealand. Are they broke? Is that why they have to go offshore? They can't raise any more money. They can't do a repeat of AC 36. They need offshore hosting dollars, because the word is, as we told you a week ago, is that they're going to take the money, the hosting fee, to run the team, and then use just a little bit of it to run the event. Team New Zealand is reneging on the Prada sponsorship deal to have naming rights in AC 37. There are legal actions taking place. One hears.
Yes.
Remember, Prada had a first right of negotiation,
Yes.
maybe first right of refusal for AC 37
Yes.
in New Zealand. So don't count out action from Prada, and they have been very quiet. In fact, when they're so quiet, you wonder what's really going on behind the scenes. So these are a series of one here's. Has TNZ repaid Bertelli, that is Patrizio Bertelli, after all the money he kicked into the 2017 campaign in Bermuda? Their backer, Denora, Matteo Denora, who is the Monegaskis from Monaco, the Italian billionaire, quote, team principal is not good for more money. Team New Zealand owes him tens of millions on-demand loans. Well, is it on-demand loans, or does he actually own the team or own a good chunk of the team? One doesn't know, but one hears there could be on-demand loans for the money he has already given him. Remember Sir Stephen Tyndall, who was trumpeting right after they won the Cup back in March. He was trumpeting what a great event they would have in New Zealand AC 37 when they could put COVID behind them. And he has now left the organization and on his own. Oh, well, I got business to run. But Sir Stephen Tyndall is a big deal, and he is no longer in the TNZ camp. Emirates sponsorship, one hears, is in tatters with legal actions over money and performance. Performance. Yeah, meaning sponsor performance, fulfillment of the sponsor, or so one hears. I wouldn't, again, I'm not going to stake my life. I probably wouldn't even stake the ranch on this, but these are things that I'm hearing from reliable sources, multiple sources.
Lots of questions. From
around the world. Why conduct an offshore defense away from your home club and fan base? And don't forget what happened to Golden Gate Yacht Club / Oracle Racing. Here's Larry Ellison with his billions, the strength of Oracle Team USA after winning here in 13, the big come from behind, and essentially the same team go to Bermuda and lose. And I predict, as I did long ago, if Team New Zealand does this offshore, they will lose. Sorry to say, but they will lose. Okay, finally, I'm going to do one more. One here's concerning the venue, and I put these together, again, based on multiple sources in Europe, here in the U.S., and down under, meaning Auckland, New Zealand. Well, not just Auckland, but New Zealand. All challengers and officials want a New Zealand-based defense. It's less expensive, it's better, it's less risky, and it's family-friendly. That goes for New York Yacht Club. That goes for Taylor Canfield and Mike Buckley, I think. I haven't heard from them directly. But it goes for, no doubt, Patrizio Bertelli. You heard Ben Ainsley, who was interviewed now multiple times, saying the same thing about his preference. If it's not going to be in the Solent, which that's okay with me. If they want to do it in the Solent, I think it would be terrific. The Challenger of Record hosts it. That's okay. But I think Team New Zealand would still lose. In fact, if you read Magnus Wheatley this morning, he's convinced that Team New Zealand's going to lose and that the big British Bulldog is going to win regardless where it's run. Did you see that? Did you see Magnus's?
Yeah.
If you're not already subscribed to the rule, I didn't take the thing and run it again because we're already an hour and 20 minutes and I knew this could be a long show. But read, subscribe to, it's free, Magnus Wheatley's excellent blog, rule69blog.com. So a little more here. Ineos, Prada, and American Magic have investments in Auckland, meaning their team bases and so on. NZ COVID risks are far less than in other venues. Well, that's debatable. I keep hearing people argue that, but you saw what we heard at the top of the show. If everybody's going to get COVID, if that's what the experts are now saying in the last 3 days, as John Campbell,
right, and
as we heard from Andrew McIrvin, who hinted at that last week when he was on the show, then that changes everything. Jeddah sponsor it's a sponsor nightmare. Yes, Can you imagine being a sponsor and going to Saudi Arabia on essentially on the 20-year anniversary of 9/11, and then say, "Oh, we're going to run the next cup there with all the human rights and other problems," but they got a lot of money. So if you're following the money,
Yeah.
and that's not what the cup should be about. The cup should be about dignity and grace and so on. Team personnel are very unhappy about going to Jeddah. Yes, we hear that repeatedly. Legal challenge far more likely with Jeddah as the venue. Cork is unpopular with the Irish voters. Only 20% support it, or so I'm hearing from people in Ireland, from friends in Europe and Ireland. So those are my one here's about the AC-37 venue options. It's a sticky wicket.
Yes.
I mean, if they go to Jeddah, seriously, that
That'll
is
shut down all of it.
that is crotonic, Julia. Crotonic ain't the word.
No.
Okay. Speaking of COVID in Auckland, as you probably all know, the PM yesterday on Monday announced that they're in another 2 weeks, at least 2 more weeks of lockdown. I don't know what these lockdowns are doing to our friends in Melbourne and to that state of Victoria, where they've been locked down now something like 220 some odd days over the last, I don't know, year and a half, something. But Alistair Murray and all the rest of you in New South Wales as well, but particularly in Victoria, are just, we can't believe that it's happening.
With the newest news, though, I wonder if lockdowns are necessary or do anything at all.
Well, you have to wonder. I mean, they've been locked down so hard, and it hasn't said, you haven't been able to stop it in New Zealand.
No,
It delays it maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that it brings the level down, and
well, it may delay hospitalizations and a whole lot of people, but it's as a lot of our friends here are saying.
But after vax, you'll still get it, but it'll be a lot less.
Well, you want to be vaxxed. I don't think there's anything that I'm seeing, and Andrew, I'm relying on Andrew McIrvin, right?
Yeah.
Andrew is saying, yes, go get the vax, and if we have to get a booster shot, but let's don't make this into the COVID show. Let's keep talking about the America's Cup.
Right.
Auckland is locked down for at least 2 more weeks. I think the idea, there was a term of art somebody used here, one of our FOSI used, the idea of being COVID zero, of trying to keep COVID out of a country or out of an island or out of, a state is, it's all nigh impossible. Especially now, we haven't even talked about the next variants. I was back and forth with Ted Ryman this morning in South Africa, where there's another variant. They haven't named it yet. That's supposedly more deadly and more transmissible. But let's don't make this the COVID show. Auckland's locked down. We're sorry you all are locked down. I hope this thing doesn't go to the New York Supreme Court, as we said a week ago. But this thing is headed for court unless they come to their senses in Auckland between the squadron and the team and say, okay, you know what? And maybe this is all a negotiating ploy by Mr. Dalton, who's very smart, who has, after all, won the cup and then defended it.
Yes.
And Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron is the first club to have won it, lost it, and then won it back. No club's done that, including New York. So I hope it doesn't go to 60 Center Street. I've been in that movie twice. Won both those cases, was on the winning side. And it was no fun for anybody, including and especially. And expensive. And nobody wishes that on anybody. Okay, let's go to the comments, Julie, because I'm sure there'll be more than a few. In fact, I see the live numbers have gone up. The Aussie, back on COVID for a sec, Yarvahe is saying the Aussie vaccine fell at the final fence and they haven't ordered from elsewhere early. I don't know what that quite means.
Oh, they didn't.
Matthias Collins, Matthias is down in South America where they've had a bad go. These countries have not seen what happened in Argentina, the longest lockdown and one of the highest death numbers. Yeah, I this whole lockdown thing is fraught, and if they're coming to the conclusion that we're all going to get it anyway,
get vaxxed and get it.
Get vaxxed, and in fact, Julie, you and I have decided we're going to stop going out and about, right?
Yeah, for a while until we see what happens.
Till we see, we don't want to catch Delta. Even though we're vaxxed, there's a lot of breakthrough COVID.
Yeah.
And at our advanced stage, we don't really want to get it. So maybe we get a booster here pretty quick. And then who knows what happens after that. Bill Wingrove, the more you move away from the deed of gift over money, the worse things will be, losing a lot of your base support in the sailing community. Totally agree.
Agree.
John Emmett, I still don't understand why Oz and New Zealand didn't get better vaccine supply.
I don't either.
That is a good question. We keep asking ourselves. Maybe Ralph Roberts or Hamish Ross, or I got to get Gladwell back on here too. Richard's been very quiet. Alex Kent in Chicago, segmented quarantines are the key. Called it in April 2020. He did. Mm-hmm. Interesting use of a cricket saying, a sticky wicket. We use that saying a lot, Peter. Peter Salmon is saying, yeah, sticky wicket. Don't we use that saying a lot? Sticky wicket, even though it's a cricket.
We don't use it a lot, but we've used it.
You know, it seems like a common. I don't know. I've lived too long in New Zealand and back and forth in Europe. Never going to. Jonathan Frank has the answer.
Right.
Never going to happen in Saudi. There's no booze.
Right.
Okay, Chris Scherendorf, we mentioned. Vikram singing. We had a lot of fair few folks in Indian, ladies and gentlemen, watching. Welcome to all of you. The cup has always been about the money. Yeah, Graham, but it's not been about. It's this is a regatta. You go to Newport, Rhode Island, when they used to run terrific summers of the Cup, June, July, August, and the match would be in September. The regatta was minimal. All the participants, the teams, and everyone else, the racer chasers, the followers, made the parties. The teams would throw the odd party. It was a lot of fun without a whole lot of money being spent, without a whole lot of central control. And now it's all trying to be a centralized IOC or FIFA-style event. Forget it. Win-lose opening up sailing to the rest of the world should be a precedent, Larry Kennedy is saying. Fritz Mueller is also saying no booze sponsors in Jeddah. But he was convinced of cows a few weeks ago. Yeah, I still am convinced. Magnus is also convinced. Yeah, Magnus is a bit, to be fair, has been a bit all over the map. By the way, he's feeling much better. He did have COVID, and he had a bad go of it.
Yeah.
He, for 10 days, he was down and out, even though he was double vaxxed. And he had he had breakthrough. So... Hungarian teams just set off course for Oak Cliff International. Larry Kennedy saying, okay, Ajim Mohammed, yep, thank you. Dalton had a huge conflict of interest running everything, Jonathan Frank. Yeah, that comes with being the defender. I'm not going to blame that on Dalton because you are the defender. And like Russell, somebody has to run it, Larry Russell for Golden Gate and for Oracle and so on. And you have to have some people who help keep it on the straight and narrow. Okay, enough of all that. The cup is in flux. I hope it doesn't go to Jeddah. Alex Kent, come on, Julie and Tom, come over for a big boat in a couple of weeks. Psyched to race a J125 with Ron Young, Andy McCormick, and friends. Alex, we hope to see you here. I mean, we do see Alex from time to time. He's no relation to Tim Kent. I think that's going to be fun to follow the Kents.
Yes.
Whitney and Tim. Mm-hmm. I hope they get the bucks. Sounds like they're going to.
I hope so.
And it sounds like, they'll have a good go. And it's a great story. The only father-daughter team.
Right.
The only all-American team. I guess there's an American with a Brit on another team. And
women and young.
And, yeah, you've got a youngster, too. Okay. Ralph Roberts. I really want Ralph Roberts to give us a video. He and Penny could do a video. Stick their phone up in front of them and do us a quick video and send it to us for a future show. They don't have to do it every week like John Emmett does. Terrific stuff. Okay, this is the Correct or Crutonic segment. I wasn't going to run it. In fact, the fact that none of you commented on my red eye, I probably shouldn't run it, but I will because we are, if nothing else, honest and forthright here on this show, aren't we, Julia?
We sure try to be.
And we'll ask you if it's correct or crutonic, this shot of me from Friday morning. You wonder why we didn't. Well, we told you we were taking the day off on Friday.
Yeah.
So that's a shot of me on Friday morning, before we would have run the show, and this is why, because we always tell the truth on this show. This is why we took the day off. Who did you upset, Tom? John Emmett is saying. And I got this from a Fozy this morning. Why? And the reason you canceled your show on Friday wasn't because you wanted to take a day off. It was because you couldn't cope with the backlash coming your way after what you did on Tuesday, claiming that the Royal Yacht Squadron is an illegitimate challenger record. That was a big stunt from you. I like it when we get some pushbacks.
Yeah.
But that's not why we called off the show,
No.
took the day off on Friday, and we gave you a clue when I posted the notice saying that we're calling it off on Friday, and that was the clue.
Mm-hmm. And you'll see why in a minute.
Bill Wingrove says, definitely Croutonic. Do we get a rebate for Friday's missed show? Ted Ryman saying, Tom, we never saw you looking so good. Well, I'm not quite so sure about that, but that was the clue, and that's what I really looked like Friday morning.
Poor thing.
And the question is it correct or Croutonic? How did it happen? I told my beloved mother, who's normally on here watching, that it happened in a hockey game Wednesday night, and that wasn't exactly true. That is how I look now. That is a picture from this morning before we went to air. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what makeup and lighting can do.
And a shave.
Well, and a shave. But some camera control software, some lighting, and that was just a couple hours before we went to air, before I went to hair and makeup, which is why we were also a little late this morning, because hair and makeup took a little longer. So I ask you, Jody asks you, Jody Shields, how did it happen? Is it correct or Croutonic that I got pucked playing hockey? I give you 5 different possibilities here, and you choose. Was I in a bar fight at Golden Gate Yacht Club, which is what someone else suggested? Mm-hmm. Someone here sitting across me in the studio from me. Were you in a bar fight at one of the... C, was I mugged walking home from St. Francis Yacht Club? It's only a 3 or 4 block walk, and there's some Croutonicism here in San Francisco these days with crime. D, was I hit by the boom during a crash jibe somewhere, sometime last week in a Thursday night race, maybe? Correct or Croutonic? Or none of the above? So you, Julia?
One of them is he got more than a finger wag from Julia.
Yeah, did somebody wanted to know if you'd hit me over the head with a frying pan or something? There's something I'd said.
I knew I'd be
on or off the air. Yeah. It's not true. So, does anybody? You were attacked by a trash bandit. You know, that's
a problem.
That's a problem, Grand Sweeney. The people are going. We put our trash bins out on Wednesday night. That's right. Could have happened. And then these people go through looking into your trash to see if there's anything in it. You put a couple bins out, one recyclable and one. Sad news, Princess Sophia canceled. Ouch. Bob Goff down in Texas. Ouch, what on earth did you do? See, I told them to pay them off. Don't mess with the Royal Yacht Squadron. Graham Sweeney. That's clever.
Yes.
Barroom Brawl. Finger wag from Julia. Okay, well, which was it? E. Pedro Foiling Sailor says E. Everybody's saying E. Jonathan Frank, that's what I'll look like in 12 hours flying the red eye to Chicago. I hope not. Fight at Larry's birthday party. It was at E. It was none of the above. And I that is true. I'm embarrassed to say I was sober when this happened. Worse than that, I was sober. Yeah. I here in the studio, I'll get rid of that PIP. The studio is very cramped. You see Julia's table, my table. This is full disclosure. We're telling you what really happened. Yep. As embarrassing as it is. I told my mother it was a hockey thing, and she didn't believe it for a minute. So, Shannon Carr, thank you. Long story short, coming in here, I woke up on Thursday morning and saw what was going on in Afghanistan early in the morning. And I came in here to grab the TV remote, and we've got a TV up here that I will come in here and start working and watch TV instead of putting the slides up. And I tripped right in here. There's a bed here in the studio, right? And in fact, we're going to take this damn bed out of here because there's only 1.5 feet between Julia's. You can't see it. We don't show it here on camera too. There's barely 1.5 feet between Julia's table and this corner of the bed, and maybe about the same between me and this corner of the bed right here. I mean, there's the bed. There's the edge of the bed at the bottom of this book. And I came in here, no coffee, tried to come in here to see what the hell was going on in Afghanistan, and I tripped over the corner of the bedspread, and I did a face plant. Mm-hmm. I hit, I guess, with my nose the top of this chair. Like, I don't even really know what happened. Hit my nose. My nose is all abraded, and then I knocked the chair down, and my forehead hit the top of that bookcase. I didn't knock myself out, but I probably would have been better off if I
Close
had.
to, no.
I
Oh,
had to plug my earpiece back
big
in.
red nose.
But I had a big red spot on my forehead. Okay, this is too much information. And I obviously have some black eyes, and it's amazing what makeup can do.
Cleans up well.
So it was really, yeah. And I took Julia to a doctor's appointment that afternoon, and she saw me come on when she came out of the elevator. You should have seen the expression on your face. And the first thing you said, "Did you get in a bar fight?" I haven't been even in a bar, let alone the St. Francis bar. I haven't even been in a bar in probably 6 years, 7 years.
Have to work on that.
Okay, that's the full story. We always tell the truth here, and one hears that's what happened. And I was stone cold sober too. If I'd been drunk, or if I had been in a fight, or had been in a hockey game, it would have been a lot more interesting.
Much more interesting.
A lot more interesting than that. Okay, enough of that. We're in a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Thanks again to Ted Ryman, who sends us any number of Whiskey Tango Foxtrot submissions. Don't call me an anti-vaxxer, dear. The name's Mrs. Doubtpfizer.
Stingray says the news from Afghanistan floored you.
Yeah, it did. That's I hadn't had a coffee. I was half asleep, obviously. I wish I had been half in the bag. I probably wouldn't have hurt myself so badly.
You're probably falling better, yeah.
Don't call me an anti-vaxxer, dear. The name's Mrs. Doubtpfizer. You know, it looks like, speaking of COVID, it looks like your Moderna vaccine is more efficacious.
It's been holding up.
Yeah,
a bit more. I mean, there's not
the Delta. We'll have to we'll get him back on. We'll get Andrew back on. This is another one. I might be willing to take that Pfizer vaccine if the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration here in this country, also approved it as a horse dewormer, because people are taking a drug that apparently, in some cases, is efficacious, right?
Yes.
That's a horse also uses a horse dewormer. This is the best one. Do you remember before the internet that it was thought that the cause of collective stupidity was the lack of access to information? Well, it wasn't that.
Oh, that is good.
That's good. That came from Ryman this morning.
Yeah, that's good.
I think Ted sent that. But okay, that's about it for us. See if there's any other comments here, Julia. Glad you were okay. Thanks, Jonathan Frank. Yeah, I'll be fine. Namatulaha Kalu. There's a great name. Ralph Roberts is watching. Paul Heimchuk, I'm glad that that was the extent of it. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear your trip, Tom, but the bar fight, the bar fight would have been better. I haven't done anything like, the last time I had a black eye was in high school, and I did get hit badly with a hockey puck in a scrimmage, in just not scrimmage, in an outdoor, what we call shinny hockey, which is playing on a pond someplace. It's a Canadian term, shinny hockey. Yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'll be fine, and as I said, makeup and camera tricks are pretty good.
May still have makeup on Friday, but it's okay.
Well, I'm going to have makeup for the next 2 weeks. I mean, this stuff won't go away for quite some time. But I do look a lot better this morning than I did even last night.
Oh, yes.
I mean, without makeup.
Yes.
Okay, finish line. We just want to say that, mention the passing of Dr. Jacques Roga from Belgium. He was the 8th IOC president. He passed away a couple days ago. He was president from 2001 to 2013, after which he became honorary president. He was married to Anne and leaves a son, Philippe Roga, who's a hell of a good sailor, Finn sailor, as was Jackie Roga, as he was affectionately known, and a daughter and 2 grandchildren. Roga was an orthopedic surgeon with a degree in sports medicine, a lifelong sports fan, and an accomplished athlete. Roga was a Belgian rugby champion and represented his country on the national team. He was a 16-time Belgian national champion and a world champion in sailing. He also competed in sailing at 3 editions of the Olympic Games in 68, 72, and 76 in the Finn class. Mm-hmm. Why we kicked the Finn class out boggles the mind. Here we have a former IOC president who was a Finn sailor, and we kicked the Finn class out. Croutonic. Anyway, Jackie Roga was a hell of a nice guy. I had dinner at their home in Belgium a number of times in Ghent, and we have mutual friends and mutual world sailing friends. And Philippe Roga, his son, has often been mentioned as a possible president for the world sailing down the road, and he's a very busy guy. He was head of Microsoft in Asia or China or something. Now he's head of Microsoft, I think, for all of Europe, Philippe Roga, and he's got some kids, and he's just a terrific guy as well. But as was, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm so sorry I didn't ever get to meet him, because the comments about his personality and person are just astounding.
You would have loved him. He
Yeah.
was, doctor's a humanist, a nice guy like McIrvin is, and,
Yeah.
and just wonderful people, as was Dr. Roga. Terrific guy. He's a great loss. Jacques Jean-Marie Roga, 1942 to 2021. May he rest in peace. Okay, that does it for us. Thank you for joining us on this show, 449. We'll be back on Friday. God, the internet, and makeup willing, right?
Yeah.
Julie, your witness.
Yes. You have to take this opportunity to like, follow, and share, subscribe.
Come on, you speak German. You got to be more forceful than that.
Don't fail
Don't fail.
to punch the button at the bottom of your screen and like, follow, or share.
That's more like it. That's more comments welcome too, even in replay. We hope you'll join us as a patron, patreon.com/join/sailing illustrated. Got another $1,000 contribution this week.
Great.
Yeah, so it does help, because we very rarely have sponsors. We have the odd sponsor, and we have some people that help us with tchotchkes, as they say in Yiddish.
Yeah.
And the World Match Racing Tour. If you send us a few things, we always appreciate that as well. But cold hard cash keeps the lights on in the makeup department. That makeup's expensive, Julia.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. You contributed some. The biggest cover up. Patreon.com/join/sailing illustrated. Anything else, Julia? Are we done?
We're done.
Okay. Thanks again to Tim Kent. Good luck to him and Whitney. Allison, it was nice to have you on from down in New Zealand. Hope to see you all on Friday. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao. Bye.